Welcome to the Next Play podcast. This is Tommy Brown, and my co-host Greg Stewart is playing softball right now. And so we've got a guy that is filling in, and his name is Adam Nelson. He is a former player of mine from Bluefield College, and he has got a great story. And we did a big episode with him that's going to be dropping soon. So make sure you go and listen to that. Adam, great to have you here. This is going to be a short cast, by the way. This is going to be a really quick 10-minute introductory, session. Would session be the right word, Adam, you think? That's not the right word. What would we call it?
I think so. A teaser session, one of those.
Teaser, yeah. There you go. So anyway, welcome, Adam. It's great to have you again. How are we doing this morning?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me back on. Had a lot of fun last time.
Good. So Adam is a former two-sport athlete in college and is a former golf pro. Now he's a very successful, he's in medical sales and he leads a big team, and I'm sure he's very wealthy and all those things. So anyway, Adam, we're talking about mental health here. And this is a big, it's a big deal. So first of all, you and I are not licensed counselors. Correct? I mean, you don't have a license, even though you've counseled a lot of people over the years. Am I right on that?
That's right.
Yeah, and I don't have a license either. So that's the lawyers make sure we point that out. So neither one of us are licensed counselors, but we're both very passionate about this. In my family, I've had all kinds of mental health stuff going on. There's my uncle committed suicide. There's been all kinds of issues. So mental health is real. It is out there. It is real. And now college athletes it's on the forefront. It's in, they're starting all these movements, which is great. And being aware of mental health is unbelievable. And I am so happy it's happening. So you struggled, you mentioned last time, with some anxiety stuff. Can you share a little bit about that? And then I'm going to go into a quick rant about my thoughts on what's happening with mental health. So Adam, go ahead.
No, that's great. And I think to your point, I think it's awesome that there is an awareness to this, right? I mean, when you think of sports, you're thinking of athletic performance, right? And how teams work together. But most of it's on the physical side. It's on your skill set attributes, things like that. But it's very rarely is it touched on mental health. And so you're seeing these professional athletes come out and saying, hey, this is a challenge, because most athletes are perfectionists. Most athletes want to improve, and there's constant pressure on getting better and better because competition keeps getting better and better. And so that lends itself, unless you kind of, again, one of your terms, babysit your BS, unless you're able to, take inventory of your thinking and some of the things that go around along with that performance, it can lend itself to some unhealthy thinking and some challenges in that world. So for me specifically, I dealt with that, right? I wanted to be the best version of myself. I wanted to play more. I wanted to excel at a high level, and anxiety came along with it. The worry of, what if I don't do this? Am I going to be bitched? What if I don't do this? Am I, going to let somebody down, or am I going to let my own self down after all the work that I put into it? So I got into, some really unhealthy thinking as I played sports. And so for me, being able to talk about this, bring on guests, and create some practical skills, some practical practices that are, the athletes that are listening can do, I think it's awesome. A few things I did in short, and then I'll pass it back to you. When I recognized that this was an issue, and it was impacting my performance, the very first thing I had to do was really just address the fact that I'm not my anxiety, right? I am, Adam Nelson. I deal with anxiety, one, so I don't want that to be an anchor part of my life. And then two, I got to have some accountability and be empowered to make some changes. So I'm not just a victim of this mental health challenge, but I have some skin in the game. So what does confident, successful, healthy thinking look like in that sports world? And I found people to model, and I found people to try to emulate, and I put a lot of time and effort into it. And I think that's available for anybody that's listening. So
you said you were listening to Jocko Willink, you were listening to John Gordon, you were listening to all, and I do that as well. Like I literally every day I try to fill my brain up with positive thinking people that help me be more positive. And one of the great benefits of me teaching this stuff almost daily is it reminds me daily. So, you said Jocko earlier, any
Yeah.
other people that you're, Tony Robbins, I mean,
Oh, 100%. So,
Tommy
so
Brown, all the stuff he's putting out there, for sure. Tommy Brown is the leader.
Tommy Brown's up there. That's why I reconnected with you.
Yeah,
I
there you
think,
go. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, no question. So there's success leaves clues. When you pick up one book, dealing with performance, dealing with, healthy thinking or whatever world-class goals you're going after, they're going to name somebody else, which is going to lead you to somebody else. And so
Yeah.
that I just kind of followed down that trail. And there was one thing that was really enlightening to me as I was doing this, and I had stumbled on, and again, we're not counselors, so I'm going to butcher how this actually works because I'm not a neuroscientist. But
Yeah.
in your brain, you have these neuroassociations, right? And basically every thought that you have, there's an electrical current between one neuron and the next. And the more you revisit that thought, the thicker that insulation gets, and it turns into a super highway so that you're going to continue to go back to that thought more frequently. Now, when you get people and you find empowering practices and methods from other people that are out there, and you stop using that old thought and you start creating new thoughts. So you're malnourishing that negative, unhealthy thought, and you're building this super highway of empowering thinking. And I think when you look at athletes that really turn the corner, they're people that have got in with a sports psychologist, and that's what they're teaching them cognitive behavioral therapy. They're teaching them practices to basically starve out that old negative thought and build that thing that's going to work for you and not against you.
Man, that's good stuff right there. That's worth price of admission on this, which is nothing, I guess. So hey, so here's my rant on mental health right here. And again, I am not a mental health specialist. And mental health is a real deal. I've dealt with my own demons, and so it's been, I have children that have dealt with them too, but it is forefront in my life. There is no doubt. But this whole notion of opting out of athletic events because of the stress and anxiety, I want to point out some things on this. Well, first of all, parents too have a big part in this, and this could be a whole episode too. If a child feels the stress, I think a lot of this is coming from parents. Their parent is living vicariously through their athletic career, and they feel all this pressure from them. That's something we can delve into later. So let's acknowledge that piece of it too. But when I hear of an athlete opting out for stress reasons, that breaks my heart. And here's why it breaks my heart. It's because at the end of the day, and that is the most cliche thing ever, it is a game. It is a sporting event. It's a something beautiful. And my coach at Covenant used to always say, the very last thing before we'd hit the floor is, it's a privilege. It's a privilege to play this game. And it is a game. And pressure is figuring out how to pay your mortgage. Pressure is going through a divorce and hoping your kids are okay. Pressure is your niece having cancer. And that's pressure. Making a free throw, making a putt, missing a shot in soccer, that is, in the big scheme of life, is not pressure to me. And I just want athletes to realize this is a game. It is a game if you're playing in college that you love. And just don't let that love ever be taken by anybody. So this is my rant. Hey, if you have mental health, if you're struggling with thoughts of suicide, all this, get help. I'm not saying that, get help. But the game should be a place of where it's an outlet. It helps you with all those thoughts. And again, you can be mentally tough. We said this in the other podcast we did. You can be mentally tough and not mentally healthy. Right. The toughest player I ever had, by far and away, has spent time in a mental hospital. I mean, and we could go into that. But these are two different deals, and the chemicals in your brain, all that. So get help. But it is a game, Adam. It is a game. It's not life or death. It's not, you're not charging some wall in a war. You're not,
You're right. You know what?
So go ahead. Yeah.
You're so spot on. And that just the perspective and thing about, anxiety, and I'm speaking to that specifically. I know there's multiple mental health challenges that people face, but with that, it makes everything pervasive. It makes it much bigger than it is. And I that's why I love the idea of you honing in on a podcast to address this with, your next series, is that when you take that monster, that thing and you chop it down and you make it something that's not as intimidating, it really can impact you. Another quick story, because I'm from West Virginia, and when we talk about principles, we always have to tell stories, Coach. So, but there was, I think it was Bruce Springsteen, right? And there was it was in a Tony Robbins book, and he was just saying, hey, here's what's interesting about anxiety. He said there was this guy that would hop bars and play music, and he had the guitar open, people would throw in dollar bills, and he was really good. But anytime that he got in the main stage, he said, my heart would race. He said, I would sweat. I felt like I was having a heart attack. He said, and I couldn't control it. So I never performed at that level. On the flip side, they interviewed Bruce Springsteen in some like Rolling Stone interview, and they said, hey, how are you so good in front of all these audiences? He said, man, right before I get on stage, he said, my heart starts pumping really fast and it primes me. And he said, and then all of a sudden I start sweating, and I'm like, man, I'm getting prepared to really give everything that I have this audience. And he said, and that really comes down to what you take away from the meaning of how you're feeling before a game, or how you're feeling with these thoughts. It's you're labeling, you're reframing it to work for you and not against you. So I thought that was really powerful, right? Like, we have an opportunity. Cancer, life and death, that's stressful stuff, and that really is. But when you look at the sport, if we can just repackage how we're feeling, it can really change the outcome and our perception of what that anxiety really is.
Yeah, that's great stuff. So where are we going with this? Well, Adam and I were talking earlier. I've got this saying, don't babysit your BS, and so we're going to really break that down and talk about that real quick, Adam, about how we're going to break down the BS inside our head. We're going to try to flush it out. How are we going to do that?
That's awesome. Yeah. So I think over the next series with the invited guests, we're going to define mental health from again a rudimentary level, so practically, not clinically. But when you talk about babysitting your BS, there's three things you got to control with your mental health. So that's your thoughts, that's your body, and that's your language. And if we can learn a few things, take away a few things in each one of these series, where we're able to address crappy thinking, address thinking that isn't working for us, working against us. Same thing with our body language, how we hold ourselves. I know you talk about that in your clinics, Coach, all the time. And then lastly, with our language, we're going to be equipped to handle some of these mental health challenges more so than we would if we believe that we were more so a victim of them versus having a choice in the matter.
So where can you find this stuff? It's where you get your podcast. Spotify is the main place, and I'll be posting all this on social media. I'll put it on our YouTube page and everything. So we're really looking forward to delving into this, and hopefully we can help some people too. Be the Thumb is my all my social media. And Adam, where can they get in touch with you if they need to?
I'm going to be on your podcast, my friend. I have very little social media presence.
Hey, that's good for you. So anyway, remember remember to be Grundy. Failure doesn't exist, and it's not about you. So we look forward to this. Adam, looking forward to delving into this, and we'll see you soon. All right.
Sounds great.